Hey everybody, this is Hogan Brown with Loon Outdoors, and I'm going to show you how to tie one of my favorite kind of late fall, winter streamer patterns. This is a fly that out here in California we fish in a variety of different situations. We fish it as somewhat of a trout spey. We swing this on light spey and switch rods. We swing it or strip it on single-handed rods as well, and it kind of imitates little bait fish, but realistically for us around here is we have a lot of spawning Chinook salmon in our rivers that spawn usually starting in September through the winter, and our tailwater trout are pretty keyed in to eating those salmon fry or smaller kind of salmon smolt as they mature. And so this is a good pattern to do that. It's got some attractor elements in it. And the big thing with this is it's a very easy fly to tie. And I personally try to keep a lot of my streamer flies pretty easy to tie because we lose a lot. We hook them up in the rocks, we snag them on stuff, because we are fishing these deep right down on the bottom where these little smolt and fry kind of live and operate. So, easy and not too painful to lose. Okay, so the first part of this fly is going to be the hook. Okay, use an Ahrex TP650. This is the bent streamer hook. I use this hook quite a bit for my kind of streamer flies, and I especially like it for this, as it'll kind of nose down. Like a fish trying to skirt into the rocks or kind of swim down into and kind of escape predator. For the bead, we use just a hot orange tungsten bead, a 5.5 millimeter. It's heavy. We want this thing down on the bottom. And I'm even going to give it a little bit of 0.25 lead right up in the front. And this is, I like to add a little bit extra weight to this fly, but at the same time it's kind of a trick to keep that bead in place as I do the hot butt on this fly. So for the hot butt, I'm going to start some white thread, and I use the white thread for a couple different reasons. One, I use thread for the hot butt because it keeps the hot butt, it makes it a little more durable. If you just put the resin right onto the hook shank, it will tend to kind of slip and slide and at times break off. The white is, I use the white because white thread takes color a lot easier than say an olive or a brown. Most of the fly, or the rest of the fly, is going to be tied with olive thread, but olive thread doesn't take the resin color or the colored resin as well as white. So I just put a little patch of white thread there, tie it off, and then for this one I'm going to use the hot orange UV fly finish. Okay, and I do this with a number of coats. With these colored resins, if you do a big blob and you don't bake it well enough, and I'm using the new plasma light here, which is our biggest light, just came out this year. This thing's a pretty powerful UV light. You can squeeze, you basically just bake the outside if you don't cook it long enough or get enough UV light on it. So I kind of, I kind of do it in stages because there's nothing worse than tying the whole fly and then going to pull it out of the vise and pinching that hot butt on the back and it kind of smashing and putting uncured hot orange goo all over the fly. Give it a little test. Yeah, see, Gotta bake it a little longer. Add a little more to kind of seal it and clean it up. One thing with these colored resins that's really important, we get a lot of I guess a lot of messages, emails and stuff about this, is to keep that resin stirred. So make sure when you get these hot colored resins that you use a toothpick or a cocktail stirrer, stir it up. And then one thing that I do to keep it, and you really only got to stir it up once, and then keep it stored upside down. Okay, I got a little cup and I just have all my hot resins in there sitting upside down, and that you only got to stir it once. You stir it that one time, then if you store it upside down, it just works perfectly, and it's always going to be that dark thick color. So next I'm going to start just an olive thread, and you can secure all that lead down, but it's not going anywhere at this point. Trim that. Then the next component is going to be basically the top here, and I'm going to use the micro rabbit strips. Okay, these are great for your kind of small trout speys or streamers. Hareline makes these. They're, you know, a little thinner than your normal rabbit strip, and I kind of set it out, pull back a little, and then just give it a thread wrap to kind of secure it in place, and pull those hairs back, get it under there. Try to center it. You know, this is basically a kind of overcomplicated, or I don't even know if it's overcomplicated, but a different version of a zonker. So most people are familiar with that style of fly. So cut it right back there. And you know, you'll see some people use wire. Some people use wire and they're going to actually palmer the wire over the top of this. But again, I'm trying to keep this fly simple because the chances are I'm probably going to stick it in the rocks, or a client's going to stick it in the rocks and lose it. Not hopefully before it catches a few fish. The body, there's a lot of options for stuff you can use for the body. A lot of my streamer flies, I've been using the Spawn Simi Seal stuff. It's the Simi Seal Maga. This is a white silver, makes for kind of a great little minnow belly. And I don't have a really technical way of putting this on. I just kind of loosely palmer it, if you can see there. And then I take it and I wrap it loosely. You know, there's a dubbing loop that probably works just as good for this, but I'm kind of a self-taught tire, so this has always seemed to work for me. I just take those long fibers and pin them back. Again, do another kind of almost just setting it on the thread and just loose palmering it around that hook shank. If you lose it, you just grab it, put it back in there. Even wrap the thread around it, tacking it in. And one thing I do with this is I use the olive thread, because that dark thread under, you can't probably really see it on camera, but you do get some darker kind of undertones, especially when this fly gets wet, underneath that lighter colored dub. And you can see against the hand here as I pull it out, and I'll pick it out here and kind of get some extra in there and give it a little bit more right there. There you go. Just like that. Pin it all back. Once I've pinned all that dubbing back, I just kind of tack it down. Always kind of give it a few pulls. Get that loose dubbing out there. Then take that, pull it over. I always like to get as much hair in there as possible. Give it a nice wrap. Trim that off. Kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay. And a couple different things you can do. You can kind of, as you pull this out, every once in a while, you pull some of that down on the side. You can take it and just kind of cut it even with the bottom. Give it a little, maybe you don't want it as buggy, especially that pull back. I like to see that hot butt in there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a hackle, palmer it. I'm going to use India hen, black olive, just a piece out of the patch, and I always go down here on the bottom and get one of the longer pieces. If you want it really buggy, you can get two. I usually find on this size one is good. So I take it, you can kind of see here. You see, I take it and I always leave a little bit of the webby stuff around the bottom there, and I just think that gives it a nice buggy look, nice buggy collar. Pin all that back, tie it in, trim it, and then palmer that around. You don't have to be too exact on how you palmer this. It's, again, I try to keep my streamers, and if you want to call them trout spey flies, as simple as possible, because the reality is they're probably going to get stuck down in a rock, and I don't want to have to feel like I need to wait out in the run to sell, pick up or recover some streamer and burn the run. And you know, let's be honest, it's cold. Fall in. Nobody likes to fall in the cold. So trim that off, kind of clean it up. Pin those fibers back. You see you get that nice kind of buggy collar. Then I'm going to give it just a head. This is again the spawn Simi seal. Okay. This is the black UV chartreuse. It's got these little strands of UV kind of flashy chartreuse, and I dub this a little tighter, as tight as you can. This kind of Simi seal stuff. Pick it. Take that pick, get a little in there, and I'll twist it a little tighter. Definitely tighter than I will that minnow body. But those first couple wraps, I'll make a little buggier just to get a little bit of a buggy collar. Then wrap those second couple ones a little tighter. And give it a few wraps. Tie it off. Give it a good pull. Trim it. There you go. You got little hot butt streamer, hot butt muddler. Nice bait fish profile for whatever you want, for swinging, stripping. You can probably even dead drift this thing. For fall, winter, and probably even some early spring trout fishing. And it's not going to hurt if you lose it, because it's not that hard to tie. You can twist a few up pretty quick to refill the box. So good luck out there. Hopefully you tie a few up and stick some fish. Have a great day.